I'm Erica Lynn, and we all know the ocean is the most demanding environment on Earth, consistently testing the reliability and durability of our equipment. When you spend as much time fishing as I do, you know that reliable gear is essential for staying on the water. This is why I went with the Abyss battery to power my trolling motor, electronics, and outboard. The guys at Abyss Battery are rattling the saltwater industry by manufacturing performance marine batteries specifically designed for sonar, outboards, trolling motors, and electronic fishing reels. They're also Bluetooth compatible, so I found checking battery statuses right on your phone while you're out on the water is a huge game changer. To learn more about why Abyss batteries are used by the pros and factory installed by premier boat builders, visit abyssbattery.com.
Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together.
Welcome and bienvenidos. Another episode of Publicly Challenged. This is your host, Clay Bowers, and I'm joined by our very esteemed guest, Donny Dust, and obviously our other co-host, Luke Oswald. Donny, you're an amazing dude. Please introduce yourself and tell us about you and just get us going on this podcast.
Right on, no worries. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me. My name is Donny Dust, and I hail from the great state of Colorado. And this is pretty much where I've been living for probably about the past 10, 12 years. It's about 10, 12 years. And out in Colorado, I run a wilderness self-reliant school called Paleo Tracks. And I teach classes all around, Colorado to my places in New Mexico and the Chihuahua Desert. I've written a couple books. I have a third book coming out called Wild Wisdom next year. And recently, maybe as a couple months ago, I started my own podcast called Rescue, and just highlighting unique rescue stories all around the world and kind of giving praise and homage to what real heroes are. The everyday citizen that's willing to sacrifice themselves to, ensure those around them are safe and can ultimately get home to their loved ones. So it's what I just like to call a real hero podcast. No capes, no jerseys, no, pop stars or movie stars, everyday people willing to get it done. So yeah, that's about me.
Mm-hmm. Your podcast is really cool. So before I asked you to come on the show, and then I was like not expecting you to say you could come on as soon as you did, and
I know.
and I was like, oh crap, I got to do some research, and I started. I went and I listened to a couple episodes of your podcast, and it's really awesome.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
I have not. I'm sorry. I didn't. Apparently, I didn't do my homework. But so let's talk a little bit more about it. So we're talking just like everyday people, heroes, or are we talking like mostly soldiers, veteran type?
Yeah, there's a whole mixture of folks that are featured on the podcast. We have everyone from search and rescue members, Canadian search and rescue, oil workers, the standard, train goer that takes the same trout. See where my head's at about fishing, but it takes the same train every day to work. Moms, dads, it's really everybody and anybody that kind of has these unique, experiences where, communities come together, people act in these very heroic ways to ultimately save lives. And it's, rock climbers, miners, your average Joe, doctors, ambulance workers. So it's some of the stories are kind of well known as far as, let's say, the Westgate terrorism attack in Kenya, the Paddington train station that took place in the UK. I don't know if you're probably old enough to remember Baby Jessica. We were probably all, 7, 8, 9, 10, but the little girl that fell down the well, she's now
wow.
Yeah. But it's, we know the story of Baby Jessica, but we don't know the story of the individuals that are associated with that rescue. And some of the unique things that they kind of had to endure in those rescues, and then kind of the second and third order effects of those rescues, dealing with kind of a post-traumatic stress of dealing with saving an infant child. There's some military ones. We're going to have a couple episodes. Well, one episode towards the end is having to deal with the International Space Station. So we're going, low to high, so to speak. So it's pretty great, and it's quite an honor to share these stories and kind of bring people on a journey of what a hero is. No one wakes up and decides to be a hero. Sometimes it just kind of turns out that way. So that's my privilege to kind of bring these stories into the surface, into the limelight, if you will.
That's awesome. Now I got to listen for sure, because I mean, who doesn't love stories like that too? Somewhere where especially like an average person or whatever. I mean, a lot of times people have a higher level of training, or you've got just this regular guy who one day reacts, and I think that's pretty cool that that instinct, that innate ability is still within people, and there's still protectors out there, and we're not just all of us blindly walking around and maybe even being sheep.
Absolutely, man. It's great to hear these stories, and I think it's pretty amazing to kind of go on their path, their journey. There's some that have to deal with miners being trapped in a mine, and a mine is being completely just it's just ravaged with water, and it's filling up, and it's just like a community comes together. It's to get these miners out. There's some pretty awesome stories. Check it out. We have like episodes that drop pretty much every Tuesday. It's a 20 episode podcast. It's produced by Sony. And I was kind of fortunate to get the invite to read for it, because you got to kind of have to like audition in certain ways. And so when I went through that like audition, you're reading in front of people, and I'm not like the best reader. If the word's too big, I'm like, God, what is that word? I remember that from like 7th or 8th grade. But it worked out. That's why I'm able to talk on this nice microphone, because this is the one that I actually use to record the podcast. But there's a whole team, a whole bunch of producers and sound editors and writers that are all involved with it, and everyone just puts a lot of effort in. And we always like, we'll air an episode, and then somebody specific that was mentioned in that episode, one of the key, kind of characters, reaches out and says, hey, I know, my buddy died in the pursuits of his search and rescue to, save some folks, but we really feel like you guys did one hell of a job kind of paying homage to him. His family listened, and it was just a great way to tell his story and how important, he was to us, and how important he was to that rescue mission. So not all of them are, happy endings, but some of them are pretty impactful,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you recently got back from Africa.
Correct.
What were you doing in Africa?
Yeah. So I got an invite from an organization called Cotters, and they were wondering if I'd head out to Africa and, kind of do some filming with them. And in return, they would put me in contact with a couple of the Maasai tribes that exist on the Kenyan-Tanzanian border. And I could go out there and just live with them, tend their goats, put on a shuka, carry a spear, and, kind of become Maasai, if you will, eating their food, kind of understanding their customs and their cultures, and just spend time really immersed with them and living with them. And it was pretty amazing. I mean, I got to participate in something the Maasai call a meat camp, and it was kind of it might be my new favorite type of camping ever. But essentially, how I got there, or how I got into this village was, I kind of employed some of my old tactics from when I was in the military as a counter intel guy, and kind of identifying the values in different communities. And in the Maasai culture, cows, sheep, and goats are their currency. Really, you are viewed wealthy based on the number of cattle and sheep and goats that you have. So I purchased 6 goats in the local market, relatively cheap. Goats are fairly obtainable in Kenya. And then I went to the village and, presented the eldest man in the village my goats, and he was honored and humbled. And there's a big meet and greet. And then the following day we did a meat camp where of the 6 goats that I had provided to the village, 2 males, 4 females, we were going to eat the 2 males. So we had to head out in the bush, track down the males, carry them back into this kind of tree line where there was a spring, and we commenced into butchering them. But how we actually dispatched the goats was something I'd never partaken in before. Because typically, like we're all hunters and fishermen, and typically we put an arrow on the side of something, maybe some sort of round, or maybe, if you're running a trap line, something to that extent. But how I killed this goat in conjunction with their culture and their traditions was through suffocation. So I got this goat on the ground and put my knee on its throat and then my 2 big hands right around its mouth and pretty much suffocated it to death. And there's a reason behind that. And the reason is simply that the Maasai drink the blood of a lot of their animals. So after the goat had, completely passed, right along its neck, you just kind of remove the hide and make like a little bowl, if you will, and it's still connected to the animal, but it's like when you pull that hide off that first 5-6 inches, it's kind of got like a little pocket, and then you puncture that carotid artery, push on the side, and all the blood fills up in that little bowl, and then we drink the blood and completely, drain the blood out of it, and it's scooped up in cups and everyone's sharing it. But if you want to be like considered, part of the men's meat camp, you have to get down on your hands and knees and just drink the blood straight from the hide. And so I did that, and then we went through the process of butchering both goats, and it was unique because I consider myself pretty well versed in eating game meats. Like with my 2 sons, they haven't eaten a piece of meat out of a piece of plastic in years. I just don't feed them that sort of, stuff. So we went through and we butchered that goat, and I will honestly say everything was consumed on that goat, from the intestines to the gallbladder, heart, liver, lungs, all organs, the stomach. Some people will turn it into tripe or will do these various things with it. It was all just removed. The only thing that wasn't consumed by a majority of the men in the meat camp was that kind of undigested, grass from the stomach. However, though, there was this old Maasai guy. I don't know how old he was. He probably had been close to 100. He just kind of made his way out of the tree line and just started eating that grass. And every bit of intestines was cut up, and it was worked into what they would call like a barbecue, where it was just roasted over the coals. The testicles, gallbladder, coagulated blood was all just eaten raw. And then there was soups made, there was barbecue made. And then of those 2 goats, some meat needed to be provided to the women of the village, as well as the young boys and young kids in the village. But ironically, it's like the backstrap. So you separate the spine and you keep those backstrap pieces on there. And myself and the village chief, we walked to where the women were kind of waiting on the side of the tree line, presented them with their cuts, and then the 2 hindquarters, the 2 back legs. That's what the young kids eat. So they take that and go, do their own thing. And then we went back to camp, and I think there's like 8 courses in the entire process, from like the blood and raw components to then eating the liver. They roast the liver right over the coals. And then it goes into kind of this. They don't cut away like cuts of meat. They're not taking roasts and shanks and stuff. It's literally just removing the meat from the bone. They stick it on a stick and then just cut little pieces off of it and skewer it, throw it in various soups. And the last portion is they collect a lot of the fat and they start to kind of render it down, and then they start to throw little pieces of meat. The large intestines, small intestines, every piece of gristle that you could come up with is tossed into that little, like crackling sort of stuff. And then the remainder of the uncoagulated blood is poured over the top as like this sauce. And we just sat there. Before you know it, like I got this huge gut. I'm falling to sleep underneath this acacia tree. There's just like this one they call, so a white person in Swahili or in the Maasai is called a Mzungu. And eventually I got a different name. I can kind of go into that, but there's this one Mzungu and a bunch of, Maasai guys laying with big fat bellies up underneath the tree, telling stories and just, BSing. But it was like, this is how we need to camp. Like everyone just brings a goat or something out in the bush and you just get into it. So it was pretty awesome. And it was quite a privilege to spend some time with them. And, I kind of told them, I said, hey, whatever you guys need me to do, I'm willing to do it. So if you need me to stand up at night and watch the cattle, because they sleep in what's called a boma. It's this big circle of acacia branches that are just full of these like 2-3 inch thorns. So there's an exterior boma, and then there's one on the inside where they actually put their livestock. And since they're pastoralists, it's kind of their priorities to keep those. So I just wanted to be able to pull my weight. So there was, one night where there's hyenas right outside the boma, and, the men kind of wake up and go there and, stand guard with their sort of culture to kind of a traditional hunter-gatherer culture with the Kamba tribe. And I was able to spend time with this gentleman known as Kinyeka. And he's somewhere, he doesn't know his exact age. He's between 70 and 85, but they don't really keep track. But he said he's been, hunting with a bow for, since he was a really young boy. And he was put in jail for poaching and then released from jail to help with anti-poaching. But the poaching he was doing was because the government kind of had a lockdown on hunting, and he was still taking, zebra and gazelle and, dik-diks for his family and his tribe to eat. And eventually they kind of caught up with him. But we spent time making bows, searching for honey and trees, foraging mushrooms. And I'm pretty particular when it comes to mushrooms. And he's like, no, this is good. You can eat it. He's like, actually, when you eat it, it will make you less hungry. I'm like, well, I got to try this. So, and he's like, if it grows on elephant poop, it's good. I'm like, what? Okay. I'm trusting you, dude. I totally trust you. And I had, no ill effects, but, so we spent a lot of time with him. And then, it was a pretty awesome experience just to kind of go there and live within those two kind of cultures and get a deeper understanding for, who they are and how they go about living. And because I think for me, who is, teaches a lot of different skills, I still like to be the student quite a bit. And when I get the opportunity to learn from people, all around the world, different cultures, different backgrounds, I definitely jump in that opportunity. So I was able to learn quite a bit, and just how they made their bows and how they built, lion traps and gazelle traps and all these variety of, snares, if you will. And it was pretty amazing. I enjoyed it, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So those pictures I saw then of you making a bow with a gentleman in Africa, I'm assuming that's who you were just talking about.
Yeah, that's Kinyeka. Yeah, he's also known as Moses because like. There's a rhino that was charging him and this woman, and he just kind of stood his ground, and the rhino just kind of split to the side, and she's like, I will call you Moses forever. And he's like, okay, but that's in those photos, that's Kinyeka. He's this little gummy bear of a man that's he just knows everything. And he's like, let's track some animals. We're like tracking baboons and dik-diks and gazelles and zebras all over, and it was just interesting to track with him and how they go about, how he specifically goes about hunting. And it just kind of gave me a little bit more ground truth into my own hunting and just kind of perspectives as far as, it's a very simple form of hunting. What I mean by is most of, if not all of their hunting is they're shooting bows with poisoned tipped arrows. And the idea, and it's like I built bows with him, and then I built a bow, kind of our traditional bow out of this, like just a traditional stick bow. It wound up being like 30-35 pounds on the draw, out of this wood called croatan. and it was complete foreign wood. But after building some of the combo style bows, I'm like, I could probably shape one out pretty easy. But when I was getting him to shoot it, they don't draw all the way back and find that cheek weld, that little money spot. It's like a 4-inch draw and then let loose an arrow, and it just takes off like a rocket with a little metal tip, or before they used to use bone or hardwood covered in poison. And it was kind of a new style of bow shooting for me. And as I introduced kind of my style, he's like, I don't like it because it's just, he's
he's used
80,
to a quick little snapshot. Like
exactly.
yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And for him, it's like he puts the arrow in an animal, and then it's all about, letting the animal run and then doing that like hard ground track on it, because it's not even like there's a large blood trail involved, because this is like a real tiny little kind of like force shaft into an arrow just to introduce the poison. So it's really about tracking that specific animal. So imagine like 20 or 30 gazelle in this little area surrounded by acacia. You come up and you pop one of them, and then 30 of them take off. He has the ability to find the track of the one that he shot and then follow it over, great distance until it's actually died. So like, as we're, and again, so it's illegal to hunt in Kenya, but as we're simulating, like, we sneak up on some gazelle, he picks one, he claps his hand, they all take off running. And then he's able to pick up exactly where that track is and how it's moving. And, he's looking for like, we always, there's a lot of different terms, I guess, when you're tracking, but a lot of people call it spoor. So ground spoor, mid-level spoor, and then like upper spoor, meaning something above your head, like a big old bull elk is moved through the brush and he's taken off, lower limbs on like a pine or something. So he's just able to identify like this little fold in the dirt that's just, if you're not looking for it, you'd walk right past it, but he just has this crazy ability to track it. Those were some really awesome opportunities to learn. And I mean, just simple things like him being able to walk and tell if an animal is pregnant, how pregnant it is, if it's a male, if it's a female, and like just the things we were going over. I was like, my mind is blown. It just, I feel like it's just going to make me, a better hunter in different forms. And yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience across the board.
It's insane. Sorry. But
I was just gonna say the illegal thing though. It's illegal completely?
Yeah. So Kenya has reformed all of its hunting laws in the past, 60, 70 years, where it is illegal to hunt in Kenya, but you can jump across the border in Tanzania and hunt. It's just, and they're actually running into significant problems with it because, the people that are there, there's no value on the wildlife unless you can present a value to them in some sort of monetary means. So they're trying to, if the Maasai goes out and they're tending their cattle, their sheep, and a lion comes up and attacks one of their sheep, they have every right to kill it. They have every right to defend their herd against that lion, but they can't do anything with that lion or hyena or leopard after. They just leave it right there. And so there's just this weird kind of going back and forth between what they're, legally allowed to do, what they're culturally allowed to do. And there's a lot of great efforts in the conservation world that are trying to build these larger aspects of conservancies to allow the people of those areas to maintain their way of life, but more importantly, live with the actual, zebra and elephants and leopards and buffalo that are out there. So it's kind of an ongoing battle, but there's a lot of great efforts that are being put forward so people can kind of maintain their culture and their past and stuff. And we don't really think about it a lot here in the States, but once you go there and like, it's very easy to put in for tags somewhere, multiple states throughout the entire year, fill your freezer, but it's kind of changed in certain areas in Africa. So,
Wow.
For a guy like Kenyeka, who's spent his entire life eating bushmeat, because everything is called bushmeat, whether it's a guinea fowl, a zebra, or one of like the 1 to 200 elephants he's killed in his life, it's all called bushmeat. So for him, that's how he just grew up years and years in eating. So now his only joy is, eating goats and sheep. And I'm like, God, I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't imagine if I was in a place and they're like, all hunting is now banned. I'd be like, well, I'm moving. See you later.
Don't move to Washington, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, or California, but they're trying. They really are trying. But it's crazy to see how intuitive people are, and not only people just like grew up with that, but that is something that had to have been like, generation after generation after generation passed down, and he still inherited those traits and the ability to do that, and is successful at it. I mean, just like, like Polynesians following certain birds and seeing a bird in the sky, and us, we just look at it and we're like, oh yeah, that's, whatever, and don't think, hey, that's 60 miles out, so now I know I'm close to land, or what, or whatever it may be. Like, that's just insane to me to be able to do that and pick up on like the little things that you were saying. It's neat to receive that knowledge from somebody, because for us, all that culture, that stuff is lost.
Yeah, it really is. I think like one of the coolest things when we were looking for honey was he wasn't necessarily looking for the beehive or anything. He was looking for the bird that likes to go to where the beehive is. So he's like, if we can find the bird, we just got to follow the bird, and that will bring us to the honey, and we'll just take a little bit of honey just to kind of keep us going. And I'm like, whatever you want me to do, I will follow you to the ends of the earth, my dude. Like, you are my favorite human being right now. So we couldn't identify the birds, but like the cool part was, even with that, we couldn't see the birds. And he was trying to call them, they just weren't in the area. Then he had like a follow-up step after that, is like, well, if we look at these specific trees that have like leaves that are dying along a branch, that can be indicative that there's a hive on the inside. And then if we do see that, we look for this one particular little hole, and there'll be honey in there. So we actually found one, but it was like an old one. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's like, he's amazing, So he's doing his thing. And we kind of came up dry because it was an old hive. But I was like, my God, man, that's all. Like, what's the next step? And he's like, next step, we just go eat some, because we were standing under the tree. He's like, we just go eat some fruits. I was like, all right, that's cool with me. But it was it was an amazing experience. I felt pretty fortunate. I hope to return back to Kenya and kind of go see some of the folks that I came across there in the village, along with Kenyaka, and explore some other areas of Tanzania specifically, because that's where the Olduvai Gorge is, where some of the oldest stone tools have ever been napped and found. So that's kind of one day in the future. But
so I got one question circling back to the meat camp. And so after the kill, after the suffocation and doing, what out of all the parts that you have never eaten before, or at least not in that style, what was your favorite one, and kind of why?
Well, I mean, I've eaten most of the organ meats, but that was like a first time for intestines. I mean, sometimes people will do like casings out of them, like sausage casings, but these weren't like cleaned. There's no like, they squeeze the poo out of them. And like, usually, the intestines I've used for like bowstrings and stuff, I split them open, scrape out that inner membrane. There was none of that. It was just like, and they just kind of squeezed the poo out. I'm like, are we going to run some water? No. Okay. I trust you guys. I trust you guys entirely. And then it was just cut up into little pieces and thrown in some of that fat and covered in the uncoagulated blood. So, I mean, that was my first time eating intestine, and I can't say it was bad, but it looked like, I'm just going to call it like bush calamari, because it was just these little tiny circles. And I'm like, oh, it's calamari. I know there's no squid around here, but calamari in my brain. Just eat it. You'll be fine. It was good. And it was cool because like they even took the hide off, and, I was curious how they were going to go about, processing the hide and drying and everything. And they just kind of did like, I kind of call like an early Native American sort of version, where they actually just stake it to the ground and they just let that sun hit it, and they kind of did a light scraping, and then eventually it turns into rawhide. But one of the things I found that was interesting was, out of all their sheep, and the sheep that produce wool, they don't do any wool processing. And I was trying to like, why don't you? And they're like, oh, it's not the best quality. I'm like, yeah, but you can still have poor quality wool, and you can spin it into different cordages and threads, and wash it and clean it, and maybe get a couple different things out of it. They're like, no, we just don't do it. I was like, all right, well, I'm not here to change your mind. I was just kind of like curious why I see some of these sheep with, I thought what I would deem as a nice little coat of wool, and they did nothing with it. And the strange part that I experienced was actually on the inner workings of the boma, they have quite a few chickens. And I was like, oh, you guys eat chicken? They're like, no. I'm like, so what's with the chickens? I'm like trying to figure out. They're like, well, the chickens essentially eat the insects and bugs off the goat and the sheep. And, because there's, being that it's a pastoral sort of, culture, there's just, animal feces all over the place. It just kind of goes. And like these chickens are basically the bug cleaners. They just eat all the insects from the entire camp and anything that's hanging around the inner boma where the livestock kind of stays at night. So they're kind of like the cleanup crew, if you will. And I was like, all right, I get, you sure you don't eat any of these chickens? They're like, no. I was like, all right, goat meat. And they'll eat like the occasional like full cattle, but I think it's for like very specific like ceremonies or something to that extent. But it was awesome. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I ate a lot of goat, and I had goat before, plenty of times before, but how they prepared it and how they went about doing it was just kind of all new. So I'm kind of curious next time I get a goat, I'm gonna be like, all right, I've got a new plan for this goat. Whoever's with me is gonna think, oh shit, here we go. We're gonna be drinking blood and eating intestines and eating raw goat balls while they give those to the kids and the gallbladder and stuff like that. And I mean, I saw one man who was so into the blood that, sometimes you're cleaning game and you get look at that little pool of blood that kind of collects on the inside of the chest cavity. Mm-hmm. And he's just in there with his hand, like slurping it up. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy is savage. It was total savage. But when I look at him, I mean, I don't know how old he is. We'll just say maybe like 30 to 40, but he's probably been doing that his entire life. And like, it's just completely normal for him. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I guess when an outsider kind of goes there, and I wasn't judging anything in a negative aspect, but I was like, holy cow. I mean, nothing goes to waste, like literally nothing goes to waste. And it was cool to kind of be part of that process and just eat goat meat all day. And they kind of do this thing where they don't actually cut the meat. So they pass a piece of meat around, or you're given like a hunk of meat, and then you put the meat in your mouth, and then you take this big blade, it looks like a machete called an oleum, and they pull it out with their teeth and they just cut it off like this and then hand a piece over. And it's like, so I'm trying to, and I've never eaten meat like that. So think of like a 14-inch like machete, razor sharp, and I'm putting a piece of meat in my mouth and then trying to look and cut at the same time, not to cut my nose or my lips off. And so, I'm trying to figure out this process. And then I saw a couple of them, like they start the cut in the meat, then put it in the mouth. I'm like, you guys got to like educate me on some of this. I'm going to come home missing a nose and half of a lip. But it was just, I mean, for me, like all of those sort of things are just, they're very fun to interact with and watch, more importantly, experiment with it, and then try and kind of see, all right, what can I apply in my own, pursuits in the outdoors, or what can I use in my own hunting, exploration. And like a real interesting concept was when I was tracking with Kenyeka, and he was like, can you tell the difference between, a pregnant animal and, a non-pregnant one? Do you guys know how? I'm curious if this is kind of a common concept here in the States, but can you guys tell the difference between a pregnant animal and a non-pregnant animal, whether it's male or female?
You mean tracks?
Yeah, the tracks.
Well,
no, I don't know about pregnant.
For me here, I can definitely tell the difference between like a buck and a doe.
Yeah. Let's say you got a bunch of does, and which ones are pregnant and which ones aren't.
No.
Yeah, no.
This sounds really. You're gonna be like, well, this makes total sense. But as he was saying, once an animal gets pregnant, the tracks will line up in kind of certain ways, and as the animal grows inside, the pelvis will start to open up and widen, and the tracks will actually widen up in its gait, and you can start to tell the difference between you're exactly like, oh no, shit, that makes total sense.
Light bulb moment right there. Exactly. I totally get it. Yeah,
it makes total sense. So we're tracking zebra, and he's like, this one is pregnant, this one isn't. And I'm like, well, first you have to stop and explain this. And he's like, look at the ones that are pregnant, they're almost kind of in line, just, almost, not exactly in line, but slightly offset. And then we
Almost
looked at another
perfectly
pair.
in line though
Yeah,
for most animals. Yeah.
exactly. And then we looked at the track that was pregnant, and there was like at least a 3-inch gap between hoof to hoof. And I was like, holy cow. Like, holy cow, out of all of my times in the bush and like looking at tracks, the space in between the hooves and that overall gait, I'm like, that makes total sense. And he goes, some male animals, they'll poo when they walk. Female animals will stop and poo. So he's like, this is a male, this is a female. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, I see moose poop and elk poop all the time. I've never really stopped and like watched an animal poo. Like if it's a big bull, is he walking and pooing? I'm like, that's a huge, tip right there. I'm like, I got to start paying attention to more animals pooing in the bush so I can collect, some data on these guys. But yeah, man, it was just awesome across the board. It really
But that's what
was.
bucks do. They it's not in the same, like, it's actually spread out as they walk when they go, and a doe will make it in a small little pile as they're
Small little
yeah.
piles.
I've noticed that because you can always find the doe bedding if you find the little piles rather
Little
than
piles.
scattered about.
Right on, man. Yeah,
Wow.
there's just so much. That's why I just like to learn from folks.
That's awesome.
It's great to be the instructor and the teacher, but it's even cooler to be the student from, a guy that we're not really sure of his age, and he's killed more elephants than you could possibly imagine with
Poison darts.
yeah, poison darts. And as he was telling me, he's like, I've killed many elephants for food and some of them, for villages. He goes, but my favorite thing to do is when the elephant is down and I've removed the guts, he goes, I go inside and I bathe inside the cavity. I'm like, you do what? And he's like, yeah, I wash myself with all of like the blood and the membrane and the kind of the mucus that's on the inside. And he goes, I wash myself in there, and it's like keeps me cleansed. And he goes, it also helps if you're trying to hunt predators, because then you smell like a dead elephant. Like you are insane, but I respect you immensely.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do that on a bear kill, but we'll see what happens.
There's idiots around here getting attacked by bucks for pouring doe urine and stuff all over them, right? Estrus and stuff. And then this dude's straight up rolling around like Luke Skywalker inside of
Yeah. Just like it's a tauntaun, and it's whatever that Endor, I can't remember what planet that was, but yeah, man. It was just an awesome experience to go out there. I hope to maybe in the upcoming year, maybe, the following year, bring some folks out there on some bushwalks with Kenyaka and maybe kind of do some of the same things that I got to experience and kind of go from there.
Dude, I'd totally do that. That's awesome.
Right on, man. Right on.
So Donnie, yeah. I wanted to ask you though, you mentioned that there's a site nearby. It's one of the earliest places for flint knapping, right? Stone tools.
Yeah.
Do any of the African people that you were with, do they know any flint knapping? And if not, what is the disconnect there? Is it just only because of the poisoning?
Yeah. So the great question. The place is known as the Olduvai Gorge, and like it's along the Rift Valley, and that is ultimately where Dr. Leakey discovered Lucy, that early version of Australopithecus, Homo habilis, all these various early versions of humans, and that's where they kind of discovered the Oldowan the Oldowan stone tool culture, and that's kind of consistent of like stone choppers, hammer stones, blades, scrapers, just a very kind of simple kind of stone tool kit, but it was very effective in that time. So that was there. That is actually in Tanzania, but I was like 80 miles south of it. So I was really foaming at the mouth to go there and kind of experience it. But I'm like, that would be another trip. Now, what makes the Maasai a very unique kind of people is that they actually kind of found their way into Kenya about 600-700 years ago. They were actually in the kind of western portions of Africa, and then eventually kind of migrated into that area. And they're kind of well known for their songs, how they jump up and down, their warrior status. Coloring their hair red with red ochre, and their garments, which are known as shukas, and that's that red plaid kind of garment. And When they first kind of started making their way into Kenya, they came across some Indian traders. And prior to that, they were wearing, and keep in mind, this is still when they were in that pastoralist, very animal husbandry sort of thing. And they came across some traders from India that they traded kind of linens with and cloth with. They didn't like the white, so they dyed it red. And that was kind of their color. Fast forward maybe 100 years, and they came into contact with some Scottish traders, and they really liked the plaid, the tartan that a lot of Scottish guys had, and they kind of adopted that into their culture. So a lot of the shukas you see these guys wearing are kind of Scottish in origin. So even though the Maasai kind of migrated there, stone tools really isn't in their purview. So when I was kind of demonstrating some of the flint knapping, it was fascinating to them, but really where they used stone tools was in the form of obsidian, and it was really for just cutting hair. They'd find little flakes on the ground, realized how sharp it was, and they were able to kind of shave their heads. I mean, they're not very hairy at all compared to, they were just fascinated with my beard and my long hair and my hairy arms. You got like I would assume a 65-year-old man kind of petting my face and calling me Mzungo, and which is totally fine. But that was kind of like the most stone tool they used were just small kind of found pieces of obsidian in that overall Kenyan area, really for cutting hair and doing stuff. But like when you go to like the Kamba tribe, which can go into the Kamba, the Wu Kamba, the Awa Kamba, all these different kind of tribal areas, they did have early uses of stone, but there's been a lot of migration, through colonization and through their own migrations. Many African folks have kind of moved from one place to another. And we have some traditional tribes like the San and the Hadza, and they're kind of in their kind of original areas, but there is still a migrational kind of pattern or immigration, or I don't know what the technical term would be, where they move from one spot to another and kind of resettled. But there's when you think of the Maasai, I don't want to call them relatively new, but they're not 10,000 years old, and they're coming from one area. So the Maasai we know today is, like I said, about 600 or 700 years old, and eventually they made their way into Kenya. And at that time, steel was introduced to them, where they have their large spears, one with a large blade on the top and kind of like a pokey kind of like single pointed blade on the bottom that they've used for hunting lions. And it's kind of interesting, as I was learning, that lions and leopards and hyenas are very aware of anyone that's wearing red, because they associate that color of red with something that will fight back and actually try to kill them. So it's recommended, like, you put on a shuka, and I wore a shuka when I was out there, whether I was on guard duty or in the meat camp. You just wear a shuka, and that is kind of like a warning that, if you're a lion, if you can try and take something, but we're going to fight back. We're not just going to, run and hide, like we're coming at you with spears. And there's many men there that have killed lions, and that's kind of part of that process to become like a Maasai warriors, the extension of the earlobes, a splitting of the front teeth, a circumcision, killing a lion. You kind of get these, these certain cultural requirements, but those still exist today, where, like I said, if a lion's coming after one of their cattle, they have every right to kill it. But it's pretty unique as far as how the Maasai kind of got there and kind of their story, because they did exist prior to that. But the most recognizable form of the Maasai is, when they jump and they sing, and we did lots of jumping. They'll point to a leaf on a tree, and then you got to try and hit it with your head. You get 3 jumps, and then we did some jump circles and stuff like that. And me being 6'2", I kind of won every competition, which was great. But they've got some hops on them for sure. Yeah.
On average, it takes about 30 days for a person to break their New Year's resolution. So if saving money was on your 2024 list, your odds aren't really looking that great. Luckily, I have a 100% guaranteed way to save you money this year. Just switch to Mint Mobile right now. Mint Mobile has wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month. If you save as much as I think you're going to, you are going to be able to afford a brand new rod and reel. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get your new wireless plan for $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That's mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
That's amazing. I assumed that the Maasai would be taller, so you're saying that they're actually you were taller.
Well, I mean, there's some tall ones. I think the group that I was kind of with, I felt like I was the tallest. But yes, there's some definitely some very tall Maasai guys. I mean, I came across a handful, but just like anything, you always pick your battles. So I'm like, I'll jump against you, and you. And they're like, okay. And they're all like 5'8". I'm like, I got this in the bag. Yeah. But it was great after, because they usually start their fires with like a hand drill. And
cool.
Yeah. So like they were completely blown away that this Mzungo knew how to do a hand drill and that I could throw a spear and I could do all these things and I could take apart an animal. And like, they don't have a lot of contact with white people all that often. But so eventually they gave me the name of Dorobo, which was like a bushman, like just a Maasai bushman that kind of can do all these things. He's good at foraging, he's good at plant ID and, doing a hand drill. So when I cranked out a hand drill, they were like, what in the world? Who is this guy? And I was trying to explain to them, look, I've been doing it for a little while, like as long as you. But the coolest part was like Maasai don't do like an individual hand drill. They like to do it as a group. So no one person is like, I made the fire, it's my fire. It's like a group thing. And I'm like, oh, that's a good takeaway, man. You know what I mean? Like if there's 4 people watching one person do a hand drill, they all want to get involved because it's kind of like really close community. And it was awesome, man. Yeah.
Well, also, geez, man, when you do a hand drill fire, I mean, I know that. So you have a lot of experience. I one time I used to do a hand drill fire and I could do it in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But when you're learning that, oh my God, it sucks.
Yeah, I never did one in 30 seconds and I kind of gave up. I mean, I suppose if I had to, I could do it, but like
it takes time.
I've got some horsetail or whatever growing in my yard that seems to be pretty good for that if you try that out. But like, yeah, man, I got a bic.
Yeah, I mean, might as well.
And a fire steel.
Exactly. Keep it simple, If it's not broke, go for it. I think my biggest like kind of fascination with doing the hand drill out there was I didn't know a lot of the woods. And I kind of teach this in my classes. I'm like, you don't have to know the name of every plant, but if you know the properties of your ideal plants, you can kind of crosswalk that from one to the other. So if you want a kind of soft wood for a hearth board and a harder spindle, well, you could pick up 4 or 5 things, shape them in what you need and start spinning and probably know pretty quick if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. And does the name of it really matter? No, but the properties are probably the most important thing. It's the same thing for, smoking meats or building atlatl darts or making a bow or doing a friction fire. Just know the properties of things and you can get a lot farther than trying to memorize every single plant. It's good to know plants, but if you're in a new place like that, I'm like, I know what a handful of these are, but I know what works well for a hand drill friction fire. I'm just going to go find those pieces of wood and make it happen. So,
yeah,
that's super cool, man.
Yeah, man, it was a good time.
So a couple of things. Yeah, what? Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Oh, okay. So you were talking about how you had all these. This was a while back, but the sheep with the nice coat of wool on them, and they didn't do anything with the wool or anything. Like, so they don't make their shukas then, or do they like just purchase fabric or trade for it or what?
Yeah, there's a lot of trading. Like I had the opportunity to go into like a local market, and there's people there trading different things. And traditionally they would dye their kind of linens, and traditionally before that they would just use like goat and sheep hides as their clothing. But as they've, kind of moved in, not into like a modern world, but as they've had this textile, they kind of They trade for them and they buy them, this, that, and the other, but you won't see anyone, walking around in like a dyed white linen from ochre or anything to that extent. But you would think if it's like a shuka, it's plaid, it's got that Scottish tartan on there, you can make one. What do they call it? A drop spindle, and you just start spinning away. But they keep it simple, man. They keep it very, very simple, and they have their processes, and you can see like a 6-7-year-old kid tending to like even younger kids, because they break them into age groups. That's why it's kind of hard to identify birthdays and like how old exactly somebody is. So they have these age groups, and it's all tiered. So if like you're in an age group that's the lowest one, let's say that's like newborn to like 8, and then maybe the next age group is another 8 years on top of that, so on and so forth. But if you're in an age group and you have people below you in age groups, you can tell them what to do. You can kind of direct them around, but you can never direct anybody around that's in an age group above you. So it's just kind of like this, it's an interesting structure. But we'd wake up in the morning, we'd sit outside of a house, the women would bring us hot chai with goat milk. We wouldn't really, there's no real like eating of breakfasts. And then, the sheep and the cattle and the goats would be let out, and then we'd tend to those. And then, when night would fall, they'd have like one little like battery operated radio, and they'd put on some of their favorite songs and dance around a fire and kind of pop their shoulders. And it was a pretty awesome experience. And, as I'm standing there, I can't dance as anything, but I'm like, I can definitely jump up and down and kind of move myself to the rhythm. And they got a kick out of it, and once people hear there's, a Mzungo's there, like people start coming from other villages to like witness this weird thing that's, in the middle of Kenya. But it was awesome.
No, can I just ask you real quick, what's with you said the comment about the split front teeth? I can't let go of that.
Yeah. So imagine where your bottom front teeth are. They actually spread them open, and it's like a sign of beauty, and it's like a sign of like reaching your age group's like maturity level. Like once that happens, you're considered like an adult. So like there's like the male circumcision, which happens later on in life once their age groups gets to a certain era. And then people will put lobes in their ears and extend them out. Well, they do something similar, but they actually cut out the earlobe and then start to pull it out. So you'll get these guys with these really big loops, and they'll actually take them and fold them over the top. So between circumcision, their front teeth kind of just being separated, if you will. And then the other thing they do is, instead of tattoos, they actually burn scars onto their arms, and they'll take a little piece of fabric and get it smoldering, and then like just dash into their arms, and they all kind of, just like how we have tattoos, they have them kind of underneath their shukas, underneath, along their arms or along their legs. They've got them kind of all over the place, and they all kind of mean a little story or, something to that. And then like the beadwork, the females do a lot of beadwork, like making bracelets and just these beautiful ornamentations of beads. And, you can look at a Maasai guy and you can kind of see on his wrist, based on the number of beaded bracelets he has, that can be indicative of how many wives he has. And if you have 2 or 3 wives, each wife has to have her own home, and you have to spend kind of equal time with them. I'm like, oh my God, man, that's a lot of work. You know what I mean? But there's just so many little things that you can kind of pick up and learn and experience and kind of find out, like, what does this mean? What is that for? What is this? And, I'm sleeping in this hut made by a woman, because all the women make the huts, and then the men bring the main support beam into the hut, and kind of they build around it. But like the woman will sleep on one side, the man will sleep on the other side, and then there's like a little room to the side where they put like some of their livestock, some of the young sheep and goats and whatnot. So I mean, it is 100% like a pastoral culture where they really hold those animals sacred. And there's a small little fire pit on the inside, which the one thing that kind of blew my mind is, we've built shelters, I've been in hot tents, having a good draft in a shelter is very, very, very important. But there's no chimney. The smoke just fills the shelter and kind of hangs in that upper level. And for me, who's tall, has a hard enough time fitting in one of those, my eyes are just being just destroyed by the smoke. So you're trying to like get below it. I'm trying to, crouch down, but it was just, and that's kind of one of those things in a lot of these traditional cultures is they don't have the best ventilations for their fires and everything. So there's kind of been this effort to like put a hole in the roof and then cap it to give them a good clean source of ventilation, because they have a lot of respiratory problems because they cook and boil and do everything over that fire. But yeah, man, it's just there's so much stuff that could, they're starting to grow corn. They're trying to find like another thing, but even the corn that I saw there, they were feeding the chickens. I'm like, you're gonna eat it? They do. They make something called ogali, which is this like cornmeal paste, and that's what they'll eat with goat. But that's pretty much, their main staples next to blood, milk, and then meat. Which isn't a bad little thing. It's a good meal.
And the random elephant dung mushrooms and whatnot. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But
wow.
Yeah, it's quite the journey, quite the adventure.
So, Donny, I'm sure you've told this story before, but how did you get interested in all this stuff? I've been following you for many years, but I don't think I've ever heard your origin story.
Yeah, right on. Well, I think my origin story is probably like most of you guys as well. You just kind of grew up in the outdoors. You love hunting, you love fishing, you love just being outside. And for me as a young kid, I kind of grew up in Colorado, and I grew up at a time when when you were punished, you had to go inside, and just kind of reversed for some folks. So I was just always outside, and I lived in a place where there was very few homes. It was just open fields and in the mountains and creeks. And I just spent my time, out there with, a BB gun or a slingshot, and you steal a kitchen knife and you think you got a cool knife and you realize it doesn't cut. But so yeah, I spent a lot of my youth just doing that, experimenting, reading books like Call of the Wild and Hatchet and Where the Red Fern Grows, kind of seeing these adventure stories. And I was always completely fascinated with them, and really just kind of wanted to take a deep dive into it. And then when I was about 13 or 14, I came across an Army FM manual that kind of laid out some specific like survival
2176.
Tactics. Yeah, it was
FM 2176.
Yeah, that's the classic. That was, man. I got sitting behind me.
I got it right in another room. But
yeah,
that was my favorite book as a kid. My dad gave it to me when I was about like 7, maybe somewhere in there. I was old enough to read, right? Barely. I had to ask like what some words were, and I just study every figure 21A, figure 21C, and just look at them and study it. And then I remember when I field dressed my first deer, and I was like, I don't know, 19 or whatever at the time, but I looked at that book since I was a little kid. I knew how to do it, right? And so one of my buddies was with me, and I just went to town and started doing it right away. And he's like, how do you know how to do it? You never even... I said, man, I've been studying this since I was a little kid. Yeah. Just because I've never done it doesn't mean it's not ingrained in here. It was etched.
Exactly.
But I showed that to my kid the other day, and it broke my heart. Because he's 4, right? But that's my little guy. But I showed him, and I was like, this was Daddy's favorite book. He looks at it for about 2 seconds and goes, cool, sets down, walks away.
Man, that's just the way it is, they're young. I think that's cool, man. It's a great book. And I found mine at a flea market. When I did find it, it started to give me like a lot of clarity into like, oh, okay, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. And, most of my family is from Michigan. I was born in Michigan. And
really?
Yeah, I was born in Flint, Michigan. Most of my family lives in like kind of like they call it the downriver area by Trenton, Groseal, Southgate. But they're all hunters, they're all fishermen, like whether it's spear and muskie, when it's ice fishing using some drop decoys or or hunting up in the UP. Like, we've kind of always had that. And I think when I found that book, it just gave me clarity and a lot of questions I had on how certain things worked. And, I stuck with that book and just kind of continued the exploring, eventually joined the Marine Corps, which was really into, sending me to some survival schools, and whether it was in Thailand or Malaysia or in the Philippines, just kind of giving these different opportunities because I was really, really into it. And then when I was in the Corps, I got out in 2011. A couple years before I got out, I kind of said to myself, I was like, how did we do it? I mean, being in the military, you got all the kind of equipment you need, and being a rock climber and skier and just kind of outdoorsman and hunter, I've got all these things, but how did we do it? And I kind of started to do a deep dive into the stone tools. And I said, all right, I think stone tools was kind of one of those defining things for us, being able to craft these simple stone tools and more complex ones. That's what I need to do. So all of my high cost items and tents and sleeping bags and things like that, I collected them all up, drove down. I was in California at the time. Yeah, it was unfortunate, but I drove down to Palm Springs, gave all that stuff away. But I was out in like the Mojave Desert area. I love the deserts. And I just started flint knapping, prior to that journey into flint knapping, I had a guy make me a handful of stone tools, and I used those stone tools until there was nothing left. And my idea was, if I can learn how to use the tool and understand how, you can shape a piece of wood or take apart an animal or whatever the case may be, once I've used the tools, then that's going to help me in my crafting and kind of days moving forward. So once those were really next to nothing, I started crafting them, and it's just been a continuous, exploration in the stone tools. And that's really kind of given me, a unique opportunity to kind of present these skills to the, to folks on social media and TV shows, because it's kind of one of those things that not a lot of people do. Some people do, but it's a difficult skill to kind of pick up. It takes time. I would say, if you want to get really proficient, it's going to take you several years to be able to produce, projectile points for an arrow or an atlatl, or being able to make a draw knife or an axe, a polished axe or a knapped axe, and making drills and different ornamentation. It takes time to learn. And I pretty much have dedicated most of my pursuits and efforts focused around stone to really kind of understand how we started as an earlier version of us, and how we ultimately use stone all through pretty much all through time. And I tell folks, when you think about it, we've used stone longer than we've used, steel. We've got stone tools that date back 2.7 to 3.3 million years ago. And, steel is kind of a relatively new thing. And, it's you kind of get a different level of confidence when, you can take a piece of chert or, obsidian or Keokuk or something like that and craft an entire kit, something that can drill wood, something that can shape wood, something that can allow you to hunt, and something you can, fell trees with. And it's just this whole sort of, experience with the stone. And I've just, completely fallen in love with it, and kind of base a lot of my actions and efforts around using stone tools and sharing, my process of stone tools with folks. And people seem to really resonate with it, because, they get, like, when everyone goes back to school, they get that like first 2 weeks about, Australopithecus and Homo habilis and their stone tools. And usually my videos pop up on their classroom screens. They're like, hey, I know that dude from TikTok, he makes this, he makes that,
We didn't have any of that when I was a kid, but
yeah, I mean, it's just, it's cool, and I think, like, in January, I'm doing a documentary with a group from Canada about, stone tools. And, like, tomorrow I'm talking to CNN about winter survival. But, like, all these things have really come from my unique kind of presentation of the outdoors, where the idea is to kind of walk in with nothing and be able to walk out with everything. That's that mental, spiritual, physical, emotional sort of thing. And, everything we could ever need already exists. We just kind of have to go about creating it. And that's when I preach to people, creativity is your number one survival skill. That can lead to everything and anything that you could possibly need, want, and desire. More importantly, in that creative process, you can survive. And surviving is really just getting by. Hand to mouth,
Right.
a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But that creative process will ultimately allow you to thrive, where you can start to build, art. You can start to build, buckets and tables and chairs and the things and amenities in life that kind of make life easier. That is kind of when you move into that thrive zone. So I try to teach folks and present things to individuals where let's get some of the survival down, but let's try to move into that thrive capacity. So in January, yes, there's that documentary, but I'm teaching a 20-day private one-on-one class with a gentleman from Ohio. And he's going to meet me out in the desert on my property. And we're going to start at square one. I'm going to strip all of his stuff away. And we're just going to start with a chunk of stone and really start crafting those tools. We'll spend about maybe 4 or 5, maybe like a week max, crafting everything that we need. And then we'll go out and we'll do a walkabout together. And the beautiful thing about the place I have in the Chihuahua, it's in Texas. So there's all sorts of opportunities to hunt. One thing is you can hunt aoudad there. It's an invasive species. So yeah, I mean, there's quail, there's jackrabbits and snakes and tarantulas. So, everything is, you can truly go out there and kind of live that full experience. And the property that I have has some, flint napping stones. So we can literally walk in with absolutely nothing and truly walk out with everything. So I guess that's kind of my origin story, if you will. But yeah, stone tools are awesome. Everyone should do stone tools. That's all I'm going to say.
So, like you said, you started out, you gave all your stuff away, which makes me think, okay, so you're still doing these trips. You're going out into nature. Animal hides, fire only for warmth? Making certain bedding type stuff. Is that what we're going with here?
Yeah. I think every environment kind of dictates certain things you want to have, but like one of my long walks or my earth roams was from the Salton Sea in California all the way up to Mammoth. And it was warm. So I knew I needed certain things, but like I knew I didn't need a lot. And I think my time in the military is kind of built up this, I'm very accustomed to being uncomfortable, especially when I was, in the infantry. But if I don't need to cook any food, or whatever I find to eat can be eaten in its natural form, well, there's no need for fire. And a fire is a great thing to have, but if I don't need it to cook something or boil some water, I'm really not going to create a fire. I'm going to find something that's going to keep me warm. One thing is, I kind of play the passive solar line when it comes to finding rock shelters. If I got it, it's facing that southern sky and it's just totally heating up, I'm like, I'm going to get some residual heat out of it. Maybe I'll collect some things up. But if it's one night of being kind of uncomfortably cold, well, I can learn from that. Maybe I can adapt in the next night. But if I'm moving through from point A to point B, I'm on the move. I'm not staying and playing. So I think a lot of people, when it comes to survival, most of it is self-induced. So you get, myself included, at times you'll head into the bush for, a weekend or, an entire month. But what I mean self-induced is you get to kind of set the parameters and pick the things that you are going to incorporate into that kind of survival venture, if you will. So somebody could say, all right, for the next week, I'm going to bring an axe, I'm going to bring a steel pot, I'm going to bring a tarp, and I'm going to bring, a fixed blade knife. Well, that's fine. And they're going to test their skills given those sort of kind of like parameters that they've put upon themselves. And I think for me, at times, I like to go out with, all right, for most of my classes, I make sure everyone has a blade, a blanket, and a bottle and some aspect of a burn. And the burn can be tinder, it can be a single hand drill, it can be a hearth board, but like a piece of cord to do a bow drill. But those are kind of like the 4 hardest things to replicate in the natural environment. A good piece of cloth to keep you warm, a blade of some sort, a bottle or a container, whether it's a clay pot or an animal skull. I mean, I did a walkabout in Colorado where I found an old deer skull, and I drank out of that thing for several days, just putting it up underneath springs. I was like, this is perfect. I think it's actually sitting like right over there. Like it's that sort of stuff. So once you kind of have those basic things, it's the rest can really be up to your exploration, and I always say it's best to be led by curiosity, especially when you're on a walkabout, because I don't mind going to a spot. I call it like a stay and play, where I'm going to go to a spot, I'm going to stay there for a couple of days, and I'm just going to play. I'm going to catch fish. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But I also like to explore, and the curiosity is the thing that leads me from point A to point B. So when I did my walk from the Salton Sea all the way to Mammoth, I was only led by my curiosity factor. I knew I just needed to walk north. Not a hard thing to do in the deserts, in the mountains. And, sun would break in the morning. I'm crawling out of a rock shelter and I see something in the distance. I'm like, oh, what is that? I don't know. Let's go find out. And I would just go. And like, it makes it very easy to kind of build up more of your reliance and like really exercise your skills, and then come across things that you would not expect to come across. Say, hey, is this an opportunity to use it? Or whatever this is it this type of cactus? Is it a type of cholla or a shindag or something like that? And those experiences have given me the opportunity to kind of say, these are the things that I like to do. This is how I like to experience the outdoors. I like to paint a really horrible scenario for myself at times. And then I also like to kind of make it easy. It's like, if I bring a ferro rod into the bush, it's not because I can't do a hand drill. It's just like, you know what? Give yourself a little break these next couple of days. Bring a ferro rod, maybe bring some tinder, and just take it easy. And maybe work on, doing some other sort of skill. And I always say, like, when you think about that creative process, you guys ever spent any time in like really hard swamps?
Yeah, I really love swamps.
I do too. There's tons of food. There's tons of things to eat, which is awesome. But like I had to do a TV show once, and I had to spend 30 days in a swamp, and all they gave me was one dead hog. And I'm like, perfect. This is my perfect scenario. I don't need anything. I don't want anything. But in a swamp, the one thing they don't have is stone. So I'm like, oh, you guys are really setting me up for failure on this. So for a guy that can craft just about anything out of stone, they removed that from me. And it was that opportunity that said, all right, how can I thrive in this environment? So trying to build a shelter, you got to get a tree that's standing upright. How would you guys fell a tree if you didn't have an axe or any sort of cutting tool?
Climb up it and tip it, maybe. Snap it off a smaller one. No?
Snap off a smaller one, right? Yeah. So anything's possible. But one thing that I learned in that experience was, if I take a tree and let's say it's 7-8 inches in diameter, or let's say it's even 3 inches in diameter, and I go maybe 2 feet above the ground and I pack it full of clay, and I build this wall of clay, and then I build a fire at the base, I can burn that tree over. And you don't need an axe, you don't need a saw. And I've got I've already crafted a friction fire over here, but now I have another tool to burn a tree over. It's those sort of things that I just long for in any sort of outdoor experience. What can I learn from, and what things can I kind of adapt and overcome, but ultimately create? So in that swamp, built some phenomenal shelters just by burning trees over, and then, finding mushrooms and building, crawfish traps and all these different things. But that's what I truly seek out and aim to do, is like, all right, what kind of problems can I give myself? And then how can I overcome given very minimal stuff? Because, you could sit there with any knife and just keep batoning around that tree. Eventually it would come over. Why not use some fire? It's that sort of thing that I like to kind of discover and explore.
A little more of a passive approach for sure.
Yeah.
Get it going, feed it a little bit.
Yeah, that's it. And then
so when you were out sleeping, and you say you threw away all your sleeping bags, right?
Yeah.
Are you sleeping no sleeping bag at all? Just like no blanket.
No blanket. Most of the time, like if I'm in the Rockies, and I'll gather up huge mounds of grass and leaves, and I'll build this big mound We call it like a Sasquatch sleeping bag, and you can crawl in there and stay cozy warm all night. I mean, it's a good thermal layer. And then even if it's windy, you can just put some light sticks on top of it. But you're essentially creating a nest, and you can lay all there all night. I mean, I've slept in so many of those where I can tell you, I mean, God, I know it's rained and sometimes it's, like a little bit of flurry here, but you really don't feel anything. It's just, it's an on the go shelter. It's like, I employ this concept called towers: time, others, weather, equipment, resources, and safety when I'm building any sort of shelter. So how much time do I have? Who's with me? What are the weather I'm dealing with? What equipment do I have? What resources do I have? And then what are my safety factors? But if I'm moving through an area and I know the lights are coming out in the next 45 minutes, I'm not going to sit there and build this elaborate shelter like you see a lot of folks doing, which is totally fine. I'm going to gather up everything and anything that I can. I know the night might be absolutely horrible. I'll probably get some sleep, but I'm just going to crawl in there and go to bed. I find a rock shelter. Hey, let's throw some pine boughs in there, some grass, some aspen leaves. It's facing in the right direction. The wind isn't hitting it. I'll get the morning sun. The rock looks nice and solid. It doesn't look rotten. I'm crawling in for the night, and I'm going to make it happen. And then there's other times where I bring a patoo or one of my jump cloths and wrap that around the waist, and that's enough. Or maybe Finn's with me, my dog, and I'm like, get in here, buddy. You're my snuggle buddy today. And we snuggle up all night. It's case by case. But when I said earlier, it's, survival is, those experiences are kind of like self-induced, but you get to kind of pick what you want. So I know right now it's, when Christmas rolls around in another 2 weeks, I'll be like Christmas Eve and Christmas morning, I'll be out in the mountains. I'll be kind of doing my own thing. My boys will be with their mom. But for me at that time, and I'm like, all right, it's Christmas. It's, extremely cold here, probably be, well below freezing. And I'm going to bring my dogs with me. I'm more worried about them at that point. But maybe I'll bring like my big bison hide and we can all snuggle up underneath it. And like a little bit of dog chow for them. I'll bring a bow and we'll just go shoot some I like small game hunting. I think it's super fun. And you can, shoot a rabbit, shoot a squirrel. It's like a good meal. I kind of like that. But that's what I'll go do. But I'll be able to pick it. And if I feel like I'm going too easy on myself and like routinely, then I'll just, I'll tell my boys, all right, hey, this is what I'm bringing out with me. They're like, why are you bringing that? I'm like, you're right. I shouldn't bring that. I should definitely not bring an extra knife or a saw. Like, Dad, you're really bringing a saw? I'm like, yeah, well, I just thought maybe we'd cut fire. No, we're not bringing the saw. I'm like, okay, we won't bring the saw, but it's, you kind of get to pick what you want. And that's really the adventure,
No, it's pretty cool. Yep. Now I feel like a wuss for sure, sleeping in the back of my truck on a platform I made, next time deer camp, I'm just going to be laying in a pile of leaves and just wake up and maybe stab a deer with a spear or something.
I do recommend people, if you are going elk hunting or deer hunting, you should always sleep in a pile of leaves and grass and dirt. If you want an organic smell on you, sleep in that stuff, right? Like you can sleep on top of your clothes or you can even sleep in your clothes, but wrap yourself in like the smells of the earth and then find anything that has been charred naturally in the environment, because a burnt tree is a very natural smell for animals. Fires happen. And then cover yourself with that wood char. Even like break a piece off and stick it in your pocket. You'll have no issues sneaking up on something, playing the wind right. I do it all the time. Like I don't cover myself in urine or anything, and there's nothing wrong with it if that's your thing. I mean, but for me, that's not my jam. And it was kind of hard explaining to my girlfriend. I'm like, look, so this is how we're gonna have to hunt elk. She was like, okay. I'm like, no, we're gonna have to sleep in piles of leaves, cover ourselves in wood char, and we're gonna go get some elk. She's like, okay, we'll do it. She's pretty hardcore. She's 100 pounds soaking wet, and I've dragged her all through the mountains in February when it's just freezing cold, and through the deserts of Utah and these canyons. And but she's very much a forager. She knows a lot of medicinal plants. I came back from the Amazon with a parasite, and she cured that in 3 days with a concoction of this, that, and the other. And so we got a good little crew out here.
Wow.
Yeah. It works out.
So do you hunt elk like every year?
Case by case. It depends on really what I need. I'm not much of a trophy hunter. It's
Mhm.
all about meat in the fridge, and if I've got enough meat that I know will last me for a good chunk of change into the winter, um, yeah, I won't put in for tags.
Mhm.
I usually, I've done a couple bison, and a bison will yield plenty of hundreds of pounds of meat. I'm a big roadkill guy. And then also I hunt invasives in different states. Specifically, I go down to Texas and I'll take a couple hogs there and I'll process it out. But I mean, if I've been eating hog and roadkill for a while and I want to go for an elk, I'll put in for a tag. But
Mhm.
I think this past year I didn't because I had a bison, but in the years past I've put in for an elk tag or mule deer tag or a pronghorn tag or bear. And I enjoyed the hunt to hunt, but I enjoy the hunt even more when I know I like really need it. Like
Mhm.
I need the meat. I want that hide for something, or that's kind of my focus of hunting. And where I kind of live, there's a good little community of hunters, and we all share what we have, what we've taken. You know, I think my biggest asset in the community is I can quickly butcher things. So it's like, I can take apart an animal, and next thing you know, like my neighbor, he's older. He goes to Missouri. He shoots, 4 or 5 deer or however many tags that he's got. And he'll come back and be like, "Can you help me?" I'm like, "Absolutely." We just set
Nice.
up our own little meat camp, and we get it done. I also like waterfowl hunting. I like ducks. I like geese, and you put 4 or 5 ducks in your freezer, fully dressed right and just looking good. And geese, we eat the crap. And a lot of people like to eat geese. I don't know why. I find it delicious. Um,
It depends. It depends on what
yeah,
I'm in the mood for. Like I don't rarely do I ever want to just take like a goose breast and sear it in the pan like a duck breast. To me,
yeah,
I just
different.
don't like that. You know what I mean? It seems
Yeah,
like most of them are too tough, but if you throw it in the crock pot and throw a little bit of
yeah,
stuff in there, I mean that's good. You can
yeah,
make some
yeah,
good Italian beef or whatever. I mean that's what it
yeah,
tastes like. Yeah.
yeah. I do a lot of like goose tacos. I'll cook it for a short period of time and just like slice it into these like kind of like long strips or like small chunks. Add taco seasoning to it and
Oh
just
yeah.
eat that up. That's pretty good. I like goose. I think you're right though. Like you can sear it in a pan maybe once or twice, and then you're like, all right, that's enough of this, swamp bat. It's just
Yeah.
you can taste every bit of algae and that it's ever consumed. You're like, oh my god. But the one reason why I like to hunt geese is soon as I shoot a goose, it's awesome. There's meat in the fridge, but more importantly, I like to rip those wings off, and I keep the feathers on those wings so I can use them for fletchings for arrows. And
Mm.
it's real easy to maintain all of the correct wings on one arrow. So I know if this is the right wing, every feather that's on there is perfect for my fletching. So like for me, a lot of hunting is the resources that it provides, from the food to the hides to wings to the intestines for bowstrings, rendering the fats, leg bones for various tools. More importantly, I mean, you might be able to kind of see it right over there, but I got this huge rack from an elk, and like as much as it would break my heart, I would cut that thing open, cut it up into pieces. When I run out of like my flint knapping tools, it's gone. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
mean, I've got you know deer and just about everything, but some of them I'm like, well, I need new tools. I need this for the year. And all right, got to put in tags. But you know, I'm also a roadkill fan. I eat the shit out of some roadkill
Mhm.
because I mean, Colorado, it gets cold. Something gets hit in the middle of the night. It just kind of freezes real quick, and I just pull it off the side of the road. And
Yeah.
boys, meet me meet me in the garage. They're
Yeah.
like, "What did you get?" I'm like, you half of a deer." And they're like, "Where's the other half?" I'm like,
Wolves. Well, not yet, but soon, right? Wolves.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The wolves are coming back around here. I think the populations are going to slowly increase, but
I
there's
think
going to
you
be some
guys you
headache.
guys are gonna have grizzlies before sooner than you think. Or at least they think. I've got a buddy that hunts, and he said he was all the way out in the breaks, and they were seeing grizzlies out there. So in Montana, so I mean, they're making their way.
Yeah,
they're making their way out and down. One of the things I got to ask you though, you talked about the bison and how you hunted the bison. I've been putting in for a tag for a while now. Pretty sure this year going a different route, but probably draw one. What did you hunt it with? Was it atlatl,
atlatls? Yeah. Yeah, so the bison that I've done in the past have been tied to like archaeological experiments with the university. So we actually go to like a couple of them and put down by the rancher, and we've just thrown darts into them. So it just depends on exactly kind of what that process is. But like if the opportunity to do some research into hunting, a size of megafauna with an atlatl, if that's feasible, then that's kind of the route we go. And whether and then I just put like this June, I'm doing a Stone Tools bison butchering class. So everyone that shows up, 8 or 9 people will show up. Everyone brings a couple coolers. We'll spend one day crafting all the stone tools, and then we'll butcher in the bison. But the bisons I've done in the past, I know a rancher, and you can't really hunt bison in North America anymore. I mean, you can legally hunt it, but you're not really hunting bison. There's so many of them are so closely domesticated, and most of the ones you might see online of people hunting, they're usually tranquilized, or they're old cows that have, they've given 20 or 30 different calves. I mean, and this is me just speaking to a couple different ranchers about, they're like, you can go out and hunt one, but it's not like
it's a day hunt. Yeah. I mean, it's
not what you think, you know what I mean? So
you're not stalking the Amber Prairies for, for 7 days after a giant herd chasing them into a snowstorm or something. But it's a day hunt.
Yeah. And I've kind of given up on the hunting of the bison and more into using it for an archaeological experiment, testing stone points, and then butchering it out and then getting the meat. And that just comes with relationship with different, ranches and, folks that kind of deal in the bison community, if you will. I like hunting in Colorado. Colorado's got some great places to hunt. Can get a little populated at times, especially once that archery season's over. Everyone kind of has their favorites, and I only hunt archery for elk, but I do like going down to Texas and hunting some, hogs, and whether you're sitting up in a tree or you're on foot, or I enjoy that, hunting aoudad, mule deer, you name it. I mean, again, it really comes down resources for me, and the food, the fur, the feathers. If I need it, I'm going to go for it and, put in the tags.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Well, Donnie, do you have anything extra special that you would love to talk about before we wrap this bad boy up?
I think, I appreciate you guys letting me kind of run my mouth about Africa. You're the first folks I've talked to, to about my Africa trip. So, no, man, I just I hope those that are listening, please check out that podcast. I think it will resonate, pretty well with a lot of folks. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and chat with you guys and let me run my mouth for a chunk of change. So yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
No, I mean, we really appreciate it. I mean, like I said, I've been following you for years. I'm fascinated by your story. I actually meant to ask you, maybe if you have another minute here, I will actually extend this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just remembered this question because like when me and Luke are sitting here, we're like co-hosts, and we're like trying to coordinate like who's going to ask which question, or whatever. Sometimes that can be tough, and I forgot, but you were on Alone. I mean, many people have seen that, but this doesn't pertain to you. But like, I'm always wondering, why does it seem like so many people on that show like are time wasters, or is that just the perception? Because like, I'll be like, what is going on? Like, how does that person like spend, all their time, and then they nothing to show for it?
Yeah. I think the one thing I've learned in doing a couple different TV shows, one to Be Alone, and a couple others, is they try to tell a story in all of the footage, right? So you could get somebody that's really active, and then the 15 minutes they decide to sit down and take a break, they want to focus on that because it might build into the story of them not getting food 2 or 3 days later. You could show somebody who is really into, carving spoons or wanting to carve something for their family back home. And it might only be a 30-minute filming where he's going to sit and carve these things. And that's not maybe his entire day has been hunting and cutting wood, but that 30 minutes, he just wants to take a break and reflect on his family. They could potentially spin that into a narrative of he really misses his family. He's homesick, and it builds into that drama a little bit. Yep. So I like to say in a show like Alone, everything you see is and has actually happened, but there's a lot of amazing editors that take that footage and they spin it into episodic sort of stories and then kind of long-term stories. So, I mean, you could talk to anybody that's been on Alone and they might say, well, I did a lot of this, but it was never shown, or I did this one time and that seemed to be like the major thing. So, I always say take it with a grain of salt, but Alone's a great show. It's definitely real. And I think when people watch it, there's like so much more going on. And sometimes they capitalize on those moments of vulnerability because it's a great way for an audience to, actually connect with that participant, as well as it might help tell a story that they've kind of mapped out based on all of your footage. So it's kind of a weird, it's kind of a weird beast, but
it's like Forged in Fire. How do you make so much drama out of just a hammer and an anvil? You know what I mean? Like,
I'll tell you what, though, I love that. I love Forged in Fire. Like, I'll watch if it's like a Friday night and like my kids are here and it's snowing. I'm like, yes, Forged in Fire. Like, and I've watched every season, but it's awesome because like I think it was like 2 years ago. I was like, all right, this is the year you learn how to work steel. So I found a local forge and I don't want to be a steel worker. It's like every year I try and pick like kind of one outline kind of skill, like whether it's making, mead and beer, it's keeping bees, or it's working steel. It's just this new skill I kind of focus on for that year. And that year it was, making knives and stuff. And I felt like I was able to make blades. I was able to make spears and different things. I was like, sold. Let's put the steel away and let's go back to the stone. I'm always working stone, but Forged in Fire, how do they make it drama filled? By setting rules and setting parameters, and you've got 3 hours to do this. You have to use these scales. And I always wonder why, I'm like, have these contestants ever not watched Forged in Fire? Like, I know as soon as I'm going to
curveball
do I'm like, just use the damn whiteout. Use the whiteout. Like, some people don't use it when they're like trying to, I'm not sure what the welding technique is, but I'm like, I've watched this. Has nobody else watched this? Like, use the goddamn whiteout so you can get the scales off of the thing when they're trying to, I don't even know what it is. I sound like
you're talking about when you're flex welding.
Yes. I'm like, just use the whiteout. I'm like, oh my God, he's totally not going to be able to pry that off. It's all right. I'm a quarterback coach when it comes to making.
Everybody's an armchair quarterback until it comes time to do it. But
exactly, and I humbly admit it.
Yeah, you probably lived it more than most.
Yeah, right.
When you make a stone tool, do you then say it will cut every time?
It will cut. I mean, like, I make things like this size, big old knife pieces and blades.
Wow.
My house is littered with stone tools. Like, it is littered left and right with, various knives that just kind of hang out all over the place. Like, my back wall is just full of stuff.
Are you importing, going out and collecting? Where are you getting the stone materials from? I mean, are you going to like napping meetups and buying truckloads, or what are you doing?
No, I've never been to a nap-in. I try to avoid a lot of like social things like that.
I get it.
I'm not like a recluse by any means, but I'm like, maybe I need to go to one eventually. But I'd say I collect about 80% of the stone that I nap. I trade probably about another 10 to 15%. And then the remainder, if I'm looking for something kind of unique or somebody's requested a custom knife or a custom build or something for a university or a museum and I need specific stone, I just go one of the sites and buy that chunk of stone. But I think just like, in hunting, you got to put in your work. So I have no issues driving to Utah or Arizona or, Arkansas or Texas to collect stone. I have a little black book with all of my I call them my secret stone locations. Some of them are not secret by any means, but they're all my stone locations spread throughout the US. And I personally believe the day I die, it's going to be like one of the most sought after items. This is just the narrative I tell myself in my head. I'm like, you're going to be like Picasso.
Somebody's going to inherit the black book.
Yeah, somebody's going to get the black book of the secret stone locations. And
you know what you should do? Make a complex series of treasure hunts that one treasure leads to another treasure until it leads to the book of secrets. Donny Dust secrets.
That's what I mean. I think there might be maybe 7 to 9 people that would actually be interested in that treasure hunt for stone, but it would be an awesome adventure. That's my thing. Yeah. So I try to collect a lot of it because I feel like you got to kind of put the work in, if you will, and you can be a little bit more choosy where you go. And
yeah, no, that's awesome. So one thing we didn't cover really was just the fact that did you completely teach yourself how to nap? Did you buy a book? Did you watch a DVD? What did you do on that?
Yeah, so it really came down to me teaching myself through the help of a couple books. Prior to this, I was never on social media, so I stayed off of YouTube. I didn't really have YouTube, and YouTube was 2009. This is before then, so it really wasn't an option. So I kind of picked it up in books, and there's a guy by the name of John Whitaker who I know, who's a phenomenal archaeologist. He's written a couple books, and I read a couple of his on just flint napping processes, and I was able to pick up some there. But it really came down to just having a shit ton of stone, part of my French, and just napping, just learning and making huge errors and giving myself stitches and just constantly bleeding. But then after a while, pain is compliance, you kind of learn how not to, almost sever your thumb or, slice open your leg from a piece of obsidian. But yeah, I pretty much taught myself, and it was a lot.
Did you did you ever take bottoms of wine bottles and stuff like that to use to practice on the glass? Or
no, I know that's a great medium to start with, beer bottles or Johnstone, which is an old broken toilet, or even tile.
Johnstone.
Yeah, Johnstone. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to do that. When I started napping, I was a purist in forms, and I still am in many ways, where I was you need to go out and find the stone. That's part of that flint napping story, is man just didn't exist around the stone. He had to travel to it. So it was all part of that experience. How did we do this? How did we figure it out? It was through flint napping. Well, this is one of those things that I had to learn and start to really kind of understand different geological forms and different, US based, plates and how they've interacted, and ancient oceans, and which was awesome because it kind of gave me a whole different level of knowledge into understanding geology. But I just like, napping rock. I mean, I have experimented with glass and stuff, but later, you find a piece of glass in the bush, you're like, all right, let's see what we can make, but it's always been rock, and I'm a traditional napper or primitive napper, or whatever they want to call it, where I don't use copper. Most nappers use copper boppers and copper flakers. That's just what they use. It's a soft metal. It kind of works very similar, but I'm traditional in the form where I only use pieces of, stone as hammer stones and bones and antlers. And that's just, I think that's the other reason why, people are kind of gravitate towards that traditional, style. Cause I'm everything I'm doing here, you can literally resource in the natural environment. We've all found sheds, and I'm every shed is a potential, soft hammer, as well as a pressure flaker, and, picking up river cobbles as hammer stones. I mean, you can do that anywhere. If I have to go get school lunches for my kids and I got to go to a grocery store, I go to the grocery store that has the beautiful Riverstone cobbles in the parking lot. And I just walk through and pick up hammerstones. It's just, my kids for Christmas, they get me rocks. I'm the easiest man to shop for. It's either a hammerstone or some sort of flint knapping stone.
That's awesome.
Keep it simple. Keep it real simple.
That's the one thing I want to still get into is knapping. That's I feel like it's the next evolution in my hunting process. I actually went from modern at the time to primitive, and then I did my own arrows, cut my own fletchings, burned my own fletchings in their own shape, stuff like that. Orford cedar shafts. Take my pencil shaver and shave the tips, and did all that stuff. Made my own pitch, glue and. I mean, what's the next step, man? It's obviously making stone point, but now I'm back on the modern equipment, but I still have a soft spot in my heart for doing the primitive stuff. It's just something about it.
You should keep exploring it. I think if I could give one bit of advice, and I give this to most people that are knapping, I'm like, don't focus on making spearheads and dart points and beautiful arrowheads right up front. Just make tools. Make simple tools. And then use those tools. So pop off some beautiful discoidal flakes. And the next time you're getting into a deer, use those flakes. And then through the resharpening of those flakes, you kind of understand pressure flaking a little bit more. And hey, you know what? I want to pop off a bigger flake that has a better proximal end that I can really hold on to. So focus on the tools, make some simple tools, use those tools. And then literally for 1 year, just make arrowheads. Don't worry about Clovis points or big bifaces, just make arrowheads. Because once you can really craft and you can pop off a flake through a nice clean hit, you've got a good flake and you're just like, all right, now I'm going to make an arrowhead. And don't worry about creating historical pieces from the past. Just make an arrowhead, something that you're like, would this kill? Absolutely. Then make another one and make another. I've got a shoebox just full of arrowheads that
functional.
They're functional, they're pointy and they haft. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the ancient cultures like the Mount Albion culture, they used a horrible quartz and basically they're pointy. Will this draw blood? If I stick this into the side of the animal and that animal starts to run, will it continue to cut and lacerate? Absolutely. Hey man, you're in the money. More importantly, I'm like, if it's not the sharpest, do a gut shot. That old mentality, you shouldn't do a gut shot. Whatever, man. I've shot many a hog straight through the gut because it's soft. I'm not shooting through the shield, that hard layer of fat. I'll stick an arrow or a dart right into that side of that gut. It takes off, and that dart or that arrow hits something and just rips that thing right open. And then 10, 15 more feet, it's laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you spear a lot of hogs?
A handful of hogs. That's really fish. That's not really like spearfishing and ice fishing, but
I want to spear big game. Speared hogs, but man, I want to go after like bears and
like Tim Wells. Tim Wells is a big spear guy.
The old Slock Master. He doesn't live that far from me.
No kidding.
Yeah.
He's quite. He's got a good following because of his kind of unique spearing videos and stuff. I actually from Africa brought back the Maasai spear that I made. So I'm planning on probably maybe like February or into March going to my buddy's property in Texas and being like, all right, man, I'm going to be around this guy for the next couple of days. I'm going to be wearing a loincloth and I'm going to be holding the spear, but I'm safe,
Yep.
And I'm just gonna go after all the hogs on his property. And he's like, yeah, man, go for it. Do your thing.
Yep.
All right, Texas.
I actually used Tim's spear on a hog in Texas.
Oh, right on. Right on.
It was February, right?
That was March last year.
Or March this year. It was this year.
Oh yeah, this year.
March of this year.
Right
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. That's the way to do it. Did you eat the hog?
Oh,
Eat them up?
Oh yeah. I made breakfast sausage out of them.
Yeah.
And took the loins and turned it into Canadian bacon, and it was fantastic.
Good, man.
Yeah.
I get so mad when people dump their wild hogs. I'm like, what are you doing, man? That's good to eat. And I know sometimes they can get a little nasty and whatnot, but I'm like, man, if there's a big sow and she's got a bunch of little ones, I'm plugging those little ones because that's like
punting footballs. Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Sure.
It's a quick gut and onto the rotisserie. They're so tender and juicy. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the way to do it, man. Well, if you guys ever want to do a hog hunt, count me in, man. I'm always down.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, we just went to where was that northern Texas. That was in March.
Okay.
And yeah, I brought my son down there and
Yeah.
he shot his first big game there. And then
Nice.
and that was with Luke and there was a couple other people. It was pretty fun.
Nice.
I actually really want to. I know it's like opposite from what you guys are talking about. I would love to go to Texas and actually just shoot them with guns. This was a random.
I don't have a desire to use guns anymore. Once
Yeah,
once
but
you get a spear kill, that's all you want to do. I'm just telling you, Clay. It's like
Yeah, but I'm not good. So this is where I do need to practice. Like I'm not good at archery at all.
Yeah.
And in fact, the house that I just bought last June, my neighbor told me, basically said like in a threatening way, "Hey, I see that target you have in your backyard. That's not allowed in city limits. You can't practice archery."
Oh God.
And I was like, "Ah,"
Oh man.
and
That
and so
sucks.
like now I can't practice in my own backyard. And so yeah, everything we do, mostly the hunting that I do is all either with my what I jokingly refer to as my French war bow, which is my crossbow.
My French war bow. That's awesome.
it sounds a little better than crossbow,
Oh man, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, or that, or we do a lot of small game in this house, and we use 22s.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, man.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
I think there's nothing wrong with hunting with a rifle, hunting with a bow, a French war bow. I mean,
Here's the question though,
poisons.
Clay. Have you ever used like a longbow or even like a recurve and hunted small game? Some of the most fun I've had is shooting squirrels with like little judo points in trees, and then at the same time chasing rabbits, and as they're just bounding and zigzagging, trying to just real quick snap back and shoot them. That to me is super fun. But you get a rifle in my hand, I'm like, let's go. I just want to grab my bow and kill a deer. You know what I mean?
There it is.
Yeah, so I actually used to hunt squirrels with a recurve, and I shot a few of them, but actually,
and then you got hungry.
I have probably one up to you guys though. I have shot many squirrels with a blowgun.
Oh, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I've got a blowgun over here, and then I got one of Tim Wells's blowguns because I get tons of rabbits, and I'm like, I need to be quiet when I shoot these things, because I was like, and I could jump out, a front door with a bow, but like at a certain point, like just stick that muzzle and just
Tim's blowgun's big too. It's like a 40 or 50 caliber size blowgun, isn't it?
I think it's 451 or something like that. Or
it's big.
It's.
I like the fishing apparatus he's got for it.
He's got a ton of stuff. I'm impressed with it, but I think a blowgun. I think I might try that. I made one out of like cane. You can kind of see it over here with some like official cane points and stuff. And I've been blowing that around. I think I've taken like 2 squirrels with it. But one squirrel was like, I pretty much knocked it out of the tree, and then my dog ate it. So I count that as like the second one. But like, I was like, all right, just go get the fun one, because the fun one is like, I'm like, if there's a mouse in the house, I'll let that mouse just slowly just, think he's getting safe, and then just pin him to the wall. That sounds like a good plan. Yeah, man, we're all children at heart.
Oh, hey man,
that's what it is.
It's all good.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's common.
Well, so before we get going, where can people find you and find all your awesome content, classes, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, right on. So anyone that's interested in classes, I don't offer any calendar classes where, I say, hey, this class is being, offered on this day. Everything is a custom build based on the person. And most of the time they are one-on-one classes or a small group. And I mean small group in the form of like, college roommates or a husband and wife, or, that kind of dynamic. I like to keep it small and intimate, but all you got to do is you can go to Paleo Track Survival. I've got a contact page on there. You send me a message. We'll set up a kind of a phone call, kind of discuss what you're wanting to do, because that's what it's about. It's about addressing your needs. But yeah, paleotracksurvival.com. As far as, any of the books that, I've written, or, you kind of want to stay abreast on what shows and podcasts are going on, you can go to donnydust.com. I kind of keep that like updated, and pretty much all the social media stuff is really just, Donny Dust. And then Donny Dust Paleo Tracks for YouTube. And you can Google my name and something's going to pop up in some way, shape, or form. Like, has Donny Dust ever been arrested? What does Donny Dust do for a living? It's, there's so many people ask weird questions, and I just, hey man, I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, I think, and then as far as the podcast, pretty much anywhere, I think it's on all the podcasting platforms like Spotify and the ones you have on your phone, and Google Play and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, check it out. It's a good time. And I appreciate you guys having me on here. Let me run my mouth and share some stories. It's been fun chatting. We'll have to do it again sometime for sure.
Absolutely. It's been fun.
Right on, dudes. Right on.
Yeah. Well, talk to you next time, Donny.
All right, brothers. Appreciate your time.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.